While I was grieving my wife, my stepson cleaned out our joint bank account, claiming she would have wanted me to have it. You don't need it anymore. He told the family he's too old and sad to manage his finances properly. But he was unaware that my wife and I had created a trust with very specific instructions, and the bank manager was about to call. I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but I can't carry it around anymore. It's eating me alive. I lost my wife, Sarah, 3 months ago. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4 by the time they found it. She was gone in less than a year from diagnosis. She fought hard, but it wore her down fast. Anyone who's watched someone they love disappear in front of them knows the kind of hell that is. She went from cooking dinner and laughing in the garden to needing help walking to the bathroom. It was slow and cruel and final. We were together 22 years. Married 19 of those. She had a son, David. From a previous marriage. He was 8 when I met him. His biological dad was barely around. I did what I thought was right. I coached his little league team, drove him to school, paid for his private high school when he got bullied in public school. We paid for half his college because his real dad lost his job again. Sarah and I never had kids of our own, not for lack of trying. She miscarried twice, and after that, she couldn't go through it again. So I poured everything I had into being a good stepfather. David never called me dad, but I was there when he needed a ride, money, or someone to bail him out after he failed his first semester at Arizona State. Even when he got older and started treating me more like an ATM than a parent, I still tried. Sarah always said, be patient with him. He didn't have the structure you had growing up. Fast forward to the last year of Sarah's life. David visited a few times, but only when it was convenient. He showed up for her birthday, brought flowers, stayed an hour. Then he was gone again. I was the one changing her sheets at 2 a.m., wiping the vomit off her chin when the chemo hit her hard. I watched her lose her hair, her strength, her voice. I sat beside her every night for the last month of her life. I watched the woman I loved fade into someone I barely recognized. When she finally passed, I stopped functioning. I'm not ashamed to say it. I was a shell. Couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. I sat in that quiet house for days just staring at the couch she used to nap on. About 2 weeks after the funeral, I went to buy groceries. Just milk and bread. Simple stuff. My debit card got declined. I tried again. Same thing. I thought it was a glitch. Next day, I drove to the bank to sort it out. Carl, the bank manager, knew us. He'd been our guy for years. When he saw me, he stood up and said, Mr. Harmon, I was just about to call you. That's when I knew something was wrong. He brought me into his office, closed the door, and started pulling up numbers on the screen. There was a large withdrawal from your joint account, he said. Almost the entire balance. David came in with your wife's death certificate. Said he was settling her personal debts. Said you were not in the right headspace to deal with finances. I just stared at him. He kept talking. Said the withdrawal was over $200,000. Told me David insisted it was what Sarah would have wanted. That I couldn't handle things right now. And the worst part? Carl believed him. He thought David was stepping up to help me. Let me make something clear. I never gave David access to that account. Not a single word, not a text, not a form. But the account was joint, and apparently with the death certificate and some convincing, David made it sound legitimate. I drove home in a daze. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in my car in the driveway, holding the steering wheel, shaking. I called David. He didn't pick up. Instead, he texted, I know this is hard for you, but Mom would have wanted me to have that money. You don't need it now. I'm helping protect what's left. I couldn't believe it. I felt like I'd been kicked in the chest. Next few days, I started getting calls from Sarah's sister, from a cousin in Oregon. They all said the same thing. David told us you've been struggling. He's worried you're not making sound decisions. One even asked me if I considered moving into assisted living. I'm 64. I'm not senile. I'm just grieving. That's when it hit me. David wasn't just stealing from me. He was laying the groundwork to make me look unfit. He was spinning a story to the family. One where he was the caring son, stepping in, and I was just the confused old widower in decline. What he didn't know, what no one knew, was that 6 months before Sarah died, she and I sat down with an estate attorney. She'd been the one to push for it. I know my son, she said. If there's a way for him to manipulate things after I'm gone, he'll take it. I need to protect you. We created an irrevocable trust. Specific instructions. Limited disbursements. I was the primary beneficiary. David wasn't even second in line. Sarah said flat out, "He needs to earn it, not take it." And we gave a copy of the trust and the key documents to Carl, our bank manager, in a sealed envelope. Sarah insisted on it. "I trust Carl. He's neutral," she said. I called Carl the next day and asked him to pull the envelope. He did. When he read the instructions and saw that David had violated several terms, including removing joint funds before probate, his face changed. He looked shaken. "I need to make some calls," he said. "David has no idea what's coming." After Carl pulled the trust documents and saw what David had done, he got quiet. Real quiet. "I'll be honest with you," he said, folding his hands. "If you press charges, this could be classified as financial elder abuse. At the very least, breach of fiduciary duty." That phrase stuck in my head, elder abuse. I hated it. I didn't want to see myself that way. But I knew that's exactly the label David had been trying to stick on me behind my back. Carl offered to help get the legal process started. He called our estate attorney, a woman named Martha Collins. She'd been the one who helped set up the trust. Smart, no nonsense, and sharp as a knife. I met with her the next morning. When I told her everything, what David said to the bank, what he texted me, how he was poisoning the family against me, her face went stiff. "This wasn't just shady," she said. "He committed fraud. And given the size of the amount, it's felony territory. You ready to press that button?" I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the floor. She leaned forward. "You need to understand, this isn't about revenge. This is about protecting what your wife wanted. You weren't just her husband. You were her guardian at the end. And now you're guarding her wishes." That hit me. Sarah's voice, right there in my head. "Don't let him bully you. Not anymore." So I nodded. "Do whatever you need to do." David still hadn't called me. Still hadn't responded beyond that one smug text. I figured he thought he'd gotten away with it. That I'd just roll over. He was probably spending the money already. Then the letters started going out. One from the bank. One from Martha's office. Certified. Tracked. The first was a demand to return the funds immediately. The second was a formal notice of pending legal action, citing breach of trust, unauthorized access, and willful misrepresentation. 2 days later, he finally called. "You're really doing this?" He snapped the second I picked up. "No hello. No shame. You're turning on me? After everything I've been through?" I kept my voice calm. "You stole from me. From your mother's trust." He scoffed. "Mom would have wanted me to have that money. She said it. She told me she was worried about you losing it all to some scam or sitting on it until you die." That last part, sitting on it until you die, that stuck with me. Like I was some useless relic just clinging to what he thought should already be his. I said nothing. He kept going. "You're just mad because I did what needed to be done. You're not thinking clearly. You haven't been since Mom got sick." There it was. The setup. The gaslighting. The angle he'd been working behind my back with the rest of the family. He wanted me to doubt myself. Wanted to make it look like I was confused, overwhelmed. Like I needed help. I finally said, "You're about to find out exactly how clear my mind is." Then I hung up. Over the next few weeks, things got ugly. David started calling other family members, telling them I was suing him out of grief, that I was unstable. I heard from Sarah's cousin Rachel, who said David told her I was probably going to die alone in that big house and lashing out because I can't handle life anymore. He even went to my neighbor, literally walked across the street, and told him I was spiraling. I found out later he tried to get a copy of the trust document from the attorney's office, pretending to be an interested party. Martha shut that down fast. But the most disturbing thing? He tried to file for emergency temporary conservatorship through the county court. Claimed I was mentally unfit and neglecting my financial duties. That filing never made it past the clerk. Martha got wind of it and had already submitted our own documents, including evidence of Sarah's instructions, a log of the bank withdrawal, and David's text messages. We filed a petition to freeze his accounts. The judge approved it. David found out when his card got declined at a car dealership. And still, he kept pushing. He emailed me, saying I was ruining the family name. He told my brother-in-law I was dragging everyone into the past. And then came the worst blow yet. He filed a formal complaint with Adult Protective Services. Said I was a danger to myself, that I needed intervention. An investigator actually came to my door, asked me questions, took notes, walked through the house. I passed everything with flying colors. But But it didn't matter. David had gone that far. He was trying to paint me as a weak old man. But he didn't realize I'd already stopped being afraid. He'd woken something up in me. Not hate. Not even anger. Focus. Because now it wasn't just about the money. It was about Sarah. Her trust. Her voice. And I was going to make damn sure David heard her, loud and clear. After the APS investigator cleared me, I expected things to quiet down for a while. But then I got a call from my accountant. He asked me if I'd authorized a tax filing adjustment for Sarah's last year of life. I hadn't. Turns out, David had tried to amend Sarah's final tax return online, claimed there was a missed refund, and listed his account as the deposit destination. The IRS flagged it for suspicious activity and reached out to my accountant, since Sarah and I had always filed jointly. That was when it really sank in. David wasn't just impulsively greedy. He was systematically trying to strip anything tied to her name before the legal wall came crashing down. He wanted every last penny, even if it meant committing federal fraud. I forwarded everything to Martha, who immediately added it to the civil suit and referred it to a federal investigator. Quietly. Carefully. No warnings. No more back and forth. David had no idea a federal audit was now underway. Meanwhile, the court had frozen David's personal and business accounts, but he still had access to a crypto wallet. Martha had warned me this might happen. David had boasted a few times in the past about keeping money the government couldn't touch. So I hired a digital forensic accountant, a younger guy named Ben, sharp as a tack. I told him everything here. What David had done, what Sarah had set up, and what I suspected. 3 weeks later, Ben found a transfer, $72,000 in Ethereum, moved from David's Coinbase account to a wallet registered under a shell LLC, an LLC Sarah and I owned together back when we briefly ran a consulting business. David had illegally used the business name to mask the transfer. Thought no one would notice. He was laundering the money using our old business identity. Now it was federal wire fraud. We added it to the case. Quietly, that same week, I got an email from one of Sarah's oldest friends, a woman named Diane who now lived in New Mexico. She said she felt weird reaching out but needed to ask, did Sarah really want David to sell her wedding ring? My stomach dropped. I asked Diane what she meant. She sent me a link to a private listing on a high-end estate jewelry site. It was Sarah's ring, the custom band I gave her on our 15th anniversary. The one she made me promise to keep in the family after she died. Apparently, David told Diane he had my blessing to liquidate some sentimental items for estate clarity. He'd already sold 3 of her antique necklaces and was trying to move the ring next. I contacted the jewelry site and proved I was the rightful owner. They pulled the listing immediately. Then I filed a theft report. Turns out David had come into the house while I was out at grief counseling one afternoon. Used the hidden key Sarah had told him about years ago and cleaned out her jewelry drawer. He knew exactly what he was doing. But the twist that really broke something in me came a few days later. Martha called and said she needed to show me something in person. She handed me a flash drive. Someone sent this anonymously to my office, she said. They mailed it. No return address. I took it home, plugged it into my laptop, and opened the files. There were screenshots, messages, audio recordings. David had been planning this for longer than I thought. For at least a year before Sarah passed. In one voice memo, he was talking to someone, sounded like a friend or possibly a cousin. He said, once she's gone, I'll get everything. He's old, soft, doesn't have it in him to fight. Mom always favored him. It's time I got what I deserve. Another screenshot was a draft email he wrote but never sent, asking Sarah's cousin to help him challenge the trust after the funeral. He'd been scheming before Sarah even passed. Just waiting. There was even a text to his ex-girlfriend. Once she's gone, I'm cashing out. It's all mine anyway. That guy doesn't know what's coming. I sat there in the dark, reading and listening, heart pounding. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't grief. This was premeditated theft, manipulation, emotional abuse, fraud. He thought I'd fold, that I'd disappear quietly into grief. He was wrong. And now, every single thread he pulled was wrapping itself around his neck. The revenge wasn't coming fast, but it was coming hard. The morning of the court hearing, I stood in front of the mirror and stared at my reflection. I'd lost weight since Sarah passed. My eyes looked tired, older, but underneath that, I saw something different. I wasn't broken anymore. I was clear. Still grieving, yes, still carrying the loss. But I wasn't drifting through life in a fog. Not anymore. David thought he could hollow me out and walk away with what was left. He didn't expect me to fight. He sure as hell didn't expect to lose. But that morning, he was about to. The courtroom was small. Civil court doesn't usually draw a crowd, but there were enough people there. Carl, the bank manager, testified first. He brought receipts, transaction logs, notes from the day David came in. Calm, professional, but firm. He admitted he made a mistake by allowing the withdrawal, but said David presented himself as acting under joint authority. It was deceit, not confusion. Next was Martha. She laid out the timeline, the trust, the violations, the fraudulent tax attempt, the jewelry theft, the crypto laundering. Every piece of the puzzle. She didn't raise her voice once. Just buried David under the weight of facts. Then Ben, the digital forensics guy, took the stand. He traced the crypto transactions, showed the shell company, proved the intent to hide funds. The judge leaned forward, taking notes fast. David sat there in a wrinkled jacket, sweating, his lips tight. No family showed up for him. Not even Sarah's cousin, who'd once believed his lies. Then came my turn. I told the court everything. About Sarah. About our life. Her last months. The night I found out the money was gone. The texts. The lies. The betrayal. I kept it simple. Plain words. No drama. Just pain. I said, he stole from a man who had just buried his wife. He didn't wait a month. He told people I was too old, too sad to notice. He wasn't just taking money. He was taking control. And if I hadn't fought back, he would have kept going. The judge asked me if I wanted to make a final statement. I said, I'm not doing this out of anger. I'm doing it because my wife trusted me to protect what mattered. And I won't let him erase her decisions just because she's not here to stop him. The verdict was clear. David was found guilty of unauthorized withdrawal from a joint account under false pretenses, breach of trust, attempted tax fraud, theft of personal property, crypto, asset laundering under a false business identity. His accounts were frozen permanently. He was ordered to repay every cent with penalties and interest, totaling $342,000. But it didn't stop there. The court referred the case to the DA for criminal charges. A few weeks later, David was indicted on 2 felony counts: financial elder abuse and wire fraud. He took a plea deal, 18 months of prison time and 3 years of probation. No more shell companies. No more access to anything tied to Sarah. The court also barred him from ever serving as a fiduciary or financial caretaker for anyone again. And that house he'd been bragging about buying with his inheritance, it had to be sold to pay legal fees and restitution. The jewelry was returned. Most of it, anyway. Sarah's ring, the one he tried to sell, now sits in a small glass box on my bookshelf, next to her favorite book of poetry. I visit her grave twice a week. I tell her what happened, what I've done. Sometimes I still hear her voice. You did what needed to be done. I didn't get justice from rage. I got it from patience, from proof, from making sure every move was legal and airtight. David thought I was old, sad, and finished. He was right about one thing. I was grieving. But he made the mistake of thinking grief makes a man weak. Sometimes grief makes a man sharper, quieter, more dangerous. He came for my future, and I gave him exactly what he earned.